You're live. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, February 18th, 2025 Island City Council meeting to order. Janice, could you please take roll?
Councilmember Atlas.
Here.
Councilmember Levine. Here. Councilmember Mitchell.
Here.
Vice Mayor Maida.
Here.
Mayor Rhodes.
Present. You join me for Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We already reported out a closed session. Can I get a motion for approval of the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
We wanted to move items 8 and 9 to 1 and 2 on the regular agenda.
Sorry, yeah, we'd like to make a motion to move number 1 and 2 up to number 8,
8 and 9.
9 up to number 1 and 2. So they don't have to stay through the whole meeting to get seen or heard tonight.
We have a second?
Second.
We have first and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 So the other two. Okay. Says here we have a presentation announcement from Committee Reports Creek Committee.
Good evening, Gary Thomas. I presently sit as your chair for the Creek Committee till you throw me off, Stacy, but that might be a while. We have been meeting, this committee has been meeting. We're kind of a little bit understaffed too. I hope you take it and appoint a couple more pretty quick so we can get a better mix of what's going on with the creek. But we've been going through a myriad of stuff for the last couple of months, since probably September, somewhere in there. All kinds of items and so forth. So we're trying to front load. Stacy, we're at the last meeting, but we're trying to front load the meeting from now on with Public Works, which presently is Ken Mackey, and Zach will be taking his place. I introduced myself to Zach this morning and told him what's going on, but we have grants coming, and it may be possibly, we have the potential for grants with Debbie Mackey and the fire department, that's Kenny Mackey again, so forth. And we had some excellent presentation a meeting or two ago from Jonathan from Wildan Engineering. So he did a very good presentation. He has a really good bit that I don't know if anybody's been able to open it up but him yet. So, and he's aware of all kinds of issues on the creek with this hydrology expertise, from flooding to fire to everything else. So, and he's even looking at the potential for reworking some of the culverts as they enter the creek that have flappers on them that don't seem to work too well. So that's been an issue, and some of us have had an issue with that for years and years on that. So anyway, some of the items that we are discussing are adjusted creek boundaries. I've heard pro and con, and we would like to know, because I just got another email that contradicts what we've been hearing, is somebody that owns halfway into the creek, who's responsible for that. So we'd like to have the lawyer hear from the lawyer on whose responsibility for the creek that owns halfway into the properties. I've heard from George, I've heard from Stacy, I had my own views on it, but if we can get a legal presentation on that, somebody on my committee looked at the Annex B that was out there, and it looks like that may go back the other way. So if we can get a legal description of who owns the creek, whose responsibility is it for the restoration of the bank and the maintenance of the creek and so forth, we'd really like to hear that. That could have a huge impact on what we do and so forth. then bank restoration, that's in that too. Who's responsible for bank restoration and so forth, because there's two different views on that. We just need that cleared up. And anyway, in a budget that I hope that we will be considered for a budget, we were looking at 7 and we thought we should probably go to a $10,000 budget for the creek for different items and so forth. It costs money to get Pine Grove to go in there and do some of the work. And later on, I talked to Zach this morning and he said I could say that he's going to be offering up trying to buy a chipper with city monies, and that chipper could be highly utilized in the creek. I don't know where else he would be using. I don't know if it's a 5%, 95%, or somewhere in between. But a chipper, and Kenny Mackey in the last summer has told me that a chipper would be very useful for public works. So, Zach may have more information for that at his presentation later on this evening. Creek cleaning. We don't know where we're at or anything this year on creek cleaning. We hope to get in there and do a good portion of the creek. A lot of my creek committee people think that we need to do quarterly walkthroughs and so forth like that, where we go down and check the creek to make sure that what's flowing good, where access is, where fire access, police access, flood issues, where we can take care of them. So, and then we had some miscellaneous items as well. But if you guys have anything that you would like the creek committee to look at, I wish that you would get those to Janice so she can get them to me, or whoever, however you guys do that, to George, to Janice, whoever, to me directly. I know some of you, or maybe all of you. You too, Anatoly. And just get us what you'd like us to look at and so forth. So is there any questions? I actually found a 1997 VHS of the creek flowing when it was flowing pretty good back then. That young lady gave it to me, and she was young then. She's still young. So Janice, I took it in 97. So I still have that in my possession. If anybody would like to see that, or maybe we should convert that over to a format that we can see and view or something. So any questions? And I see other people here from the Creek Committee. And I don't know if they have anything that they'd like to say as well.
I have one question, and it has nothing to do with you, Gary. But committee reports are on the agenda. Are we moving them to the front of the agenda? Mr. Lee?
I looked and I didn't see myself on the agenda, so I came in and found out that I was in
Yeah,
the
it's-
front
it's
loaded, so.
Committee reports.
Presentation.
It's under M, yeah.
George, can I speak to that? The item at the end of the agenda refers to city council members who
Yeah.
attended their
Committee.
different committees. That's where they report
Right.
on their items.
So my question is are we moving it to
No.
presentations?
No,
Okay,
the committee members are going to meet at the actual Creek Committee, Park and Rec, and Planning are all going to be at the beginning under presentation. and
okay.
announcements.
So that's my question.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
it's yes, we have moved the committee reports to the front.
For
As
the
a,
different committees.
as a presentation, my
As a
presentation
presentation.
to you, the way I'm
Got it.
understanding it goes
Got
to
it.
the front.
We've
There-
never done that before, but I know we started to do
Yeah.
it with Parks and Rec.
I think if Stacy was
Okay.
reporting on the Creek Committee, then he would reporting out later on.
Okay.
The way
just-
I understood
just-
it.
I think it's a good idea.
That's one of the items you requested.
Yeah, because Parks and Rec wanted it, yeah.
And I paid Janice, so I didn't have to stay here all meeting. So did I cover everything? Do you guys have any questions of the Creek Committee? If you have any questions of something that we need to be looking into, then we would appreciate that. as well. And if we can get that taken up on whose responsibility for the creek maintenance and stuff like that, if you'd have your lawyer looking in that, I can't ask your lawyer to expend monies, and I can't ask your Public Works, I can't ask anybody. I can go through you guys to get stuff done. So we're just a small spoke in that wheel, and appreciate working with the city council and so forth, but we need the coordination from Public Works, fire, police, everybody to get this done. So hopefully we can make Ione safe and with flood or fire and so forth, and have a healthy creek is what we're looking forward to and envisioning. So appreciate the time to come here and make a presentation to you guys. And I think Janice threatened me with the fact that I might come here every month and do this. So
Just keep it shorter next time.
I will. This is the longest one, but I wanted to make sure you guys understood that we were
Appreciate it.
all
Thank you,
those
Gary.
factors in there.
Thank you, Janice.
All right, we'll move on to public comment. Any public comment that's not on the agenda?
Hi, my name is Katie Scott, and I am an Ione resident, although we live in the unincorporated area, so I can't run for city council. Most of you know me, or many of you know me as the current Rotary president, but today I'm actually here in a different capacity. I'm actually representing the American Association of University Women. And if you know of them at all, our primary fundraiser is annually a home tour. We've been doing home tours in the county for over 40 years. And this year, the home tour is in Ione. And so I'm here just to let everybody know that we will, in the first Saturday in May, we will be hosting something like 400 people who will be coming through town, looking through 4 different homes that people have offered to have displayed for these participants, these people who show up and buy tickets to our event. Preston Castle will also be hosting a tea. And we will also have the Methodist Church open as an area of historical interest. So we will be soliciting sponsors and all the things that normally people do for fundraisers. But I'm here this evening just to give the city council a heads up that this is coming your way. And it should be really amazing for the city of Ione. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Items not on the agenda? We'll close public comment. Move on to consent calendar. Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'd like to pull number 3.
And I'd like to pull number 1.
All right, we have a motion to pull number 1 and number, what'd you say, 3? We have a second?
We need a motion for that?
Oh.
We don't.
No?
A motion needed for consent items.
Okay. Then we'll get approval to
1 and 3.
vote to item 2 on the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2025-07, prohibiting parking on a portion of Main Street during the Ione Veterans Walk.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, moving on to regular agenda. Warrants is now 1.
1?
Mhm.
I just have a couple questions.
Sure.
3 or 4.
You hear me okay? Yeah.
Yep. First question, on the invoice date, is that the date that you received the invoice?
Typically, yes.
What would make it not typical?
Sometimes we would receive it and there might be an error that has to be corrected. And so you get the most updated date.
When it comes back in?
Exactly.
Okay. What policy is in place on who decides who gets paid? Or what's the justification as to paying one invoice that you have over another.
So it's not that we're in a position where we pick and choose. It looks like historically that was the case in some cases. A great example would be there's a bunch of Wildan being paid.
Oh, gosh, you knew exactly where I was going.
All right, where you're
didn't
going. All right. So as a great example of, it looks like
you? Back to January of last year.
of last fiscal year, some were held up by I'm assuming the finance manager at the time for reasons of debating on whether or not those fees were correct. We were made aware of these back invoices and made a pay arrangement to just get them paid off, assuming that there was no one else that found an issue with the invoices. So that's why you see some that are, I think
Three,
there was
four,
May in
5,
there
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
quite a bit. And because of the way records were stored, I would say if it weren't for them reaching out, we wouldn't have known.
You mean the company reaching out and saying they hadn't been paid yet?
For
Exactly.
a year.
I mean, rightfully so.
Yeah,
They're owed money, so they reached out and we figured out what was going on. So it looks like in past administration, there was sometimes things were held back on being paid.
Well, it's this current administration.
Okay.
So, I'm,
I would,
and then I see others that come in right away and they're paid.
Wildan, as things come in, we pay. As we
Yeah.
were made aware of this one, we paid.
This
The-
8
The stuff that goes back to May.
to January.
Yeah, there's some points of finer points that Andrew can bring.
That's
up.
okay. I mean, I'm just.
I know
you
some of the
when
ones on
we see
Wildan.
it, we ask a question.
So on some of them, one had to do with the police station where they did the drawings and they came back incorrect twice. And so there was a dispute of paying that bill because both drawings were incorrect. And then they hired, I believe, Larry White to come in and fix it. So that one was in dispute. So that one I know previously didn't get paid. There's another one where they had there was no detail at all, just names.
I don't need you to come up here and slam I'm just.
No, I'm not, I'm
I
telling you
don't
why
need-
those
I-
originally weren't
it's-
paid.
well,
And then I
that's
don't know what
kind of what's
happened.
going on. I was just asking if there was something in place to justify when an invoice gets paid and when it doesn't. That's all. We
So
don't
my,
need to-
I was just letting you know why they weren't paid, and then when the finance manager left, there was no insight that they hadn't resolved that issue. I was just trying to clarify.
Okay, but
Thank you, Andrew.
these are December, November, October, September. So it's this administration that those invoices were coming in. And my next question is, when somebody continues to pay their sewer bill after they move, how do you we have someone here who we're refunding $1,100 in a sewer bill. And it just says he kept paying. Do we not know when
So unless you,
we just, it's curious.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm speaking to this because I did the waste. That gentleman, I believe, had set up for auto pay through his bank, so we don't have insight into that. And if there's not a number for contact, there's no way for us to stop their payments. And so a lot of time it's elderly people that will have, or in a case someone passes away and it's set up on an auto pay and the house isn't sold. When a house sells, we deal with the county and they let us know when there's a new deed transfer, so a grant deed. So that's when we create the new account. But say someone passed away, we had this happen several times. Someone passes away, it's on auto pay, it just keeps getting paid. We won't know it until the house sells. So if they're overpaying, or they'll sometimes send us the amount of a mortgage payment.
I understand.
So whenever we
Yeah.
catch it, we end up refunding them. And we have like 2,500 accounts, so
Yeah.
there's not
That
an
makes sense.
easy way to
I
look
think
at every
I
single
ended
one.
up paying all of my father's bills that were piled up. Okay, I don't think I have any more on that one.
Someone want to make a
Um,
motion?
So the same with the attorney bills,
yes, so
attorney bills, West Joe's bills. 5 months behind.
I see that. I see that there's some that were recently received. And there's some that are being billed for work that dates back to a time. So for instance, our last attorney, is an example of an invoice date that you'll see that isn't necessarily a reflection of the day we got it. Sometimes it's more about the period in which he's covering. There was overlap with our current firm. And so and some ongoing project with the, I believe it's called the Tilly's settlement.
I mean, and I don't know if you can do this. We don't see the invoices. We don't know, what you're paying. I don't know if it'll fit on here, but if it's especially with an attorney, sorry, Josh, but what month we're covering,
Oh, sure. We keep the
that way
invoices.
we know,
like this for
what we're
this
paying
period.
for. Yeah. We just get the bottom line. We don't see the work they're doing. So, I mean, that would be nice because we're up here approving these bills.
I understand. That's why we keep the records. So here are all the invoices.
Yeah,
And
but
if you have a question, I
we
can
don't get
reference
those.
any of
We
them.
just get, here, pay this.
Mhm.
So I don't know if it's possible that there could be a little more detail on the warrants to help us out a little bit. That's all.
Any other questions with the warrants?
No, thank you, Mike.
No problem.
Missing staff.
Someone want to make a motion to approve the warrants?
Make the motion to approve the warrants. Second.
We have first and second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes have it. Second one is item 3, approval of sewer credit for Michael Plee.
Yeah, so there was no report on this other than this letter going to Janice, or this came from Janice, but I don't know how it came about, but there's, in the code of ordinances, there's no provision to give anyone a credit once the house has been, occupied. It says here, no credit adjustment or refund will be made to any customer because the premises or any part thereof are vacant unless said premises are disconnected from the sewer system. And how you disconnect it from the sewer system is you use one of those bladders that you put in at the other end of the lateral, and that person's then disconnected. In that case, then you could ask for a refund. I don't know if that happened in this case because we didn't get all the information. However, there is a provision under B where it says the owner or occupants of any premises who by reason of special circumstances finds that the applicable rates are unjust or inequitable as applied to his premises may make a written application to the city council, basically asking for a waiver of some of the fees, not a total forgiveness of some of the fees, but, saying, well, he was out of his house because he was, and it was being rebuilt from a fire, which it was. And could they get a partial refund? And I don't know if you've read that, Mr. Attorney, on I've got it here. I'll let you have it. But what I would suggest in this case is that's followed. The part B of the sewer reimbursement thing's followed, and he writes a letter to the council, and the council looks at it and decides whether they will give him a discount on his sewer fees. And I'm in favor of, just so you know, I'm in favor of giving him a discount, but I'm not in favor of completely waiving the whole thing. So that's my 2 cents. Like I said, there is no provision to just give someone a blanket, here, you're good. You don't have to pay unless they've been disconnected from the sewer. So that's all I have on that one.
So do you want to table this one or?
Yeah. I will.
If the council wants the request to undergo further review, then you wouldn't approve it tonight and bring it back after we look at it.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm definitely table this at least because at this point, I could not vote for this. So I think it might be wise to look at it because I think, I could use some analogies and I can say them for next time. But I mean, we know we have empty lots here in this town that people don't have property on, a physical building, maybe because it's an old lot, but they still have access to sewer. I don't believe we should start a precedence on this, is my opinion. So I think table is a good idea.
Okay. we'll
Also-
table.
Yeah, also gathering that maybe a brief email might be insufficient for council review purposes if the request is being made.
Yeah, I mean, we'd follow the Muni code. What section was that, Dominic?
I don't know, just give it to the attorney there.
1348.
Okay, so we'll table it till next meeting.
Right.
All right.
We still have public input on that?
Sure, yeah. open.
Gary Thomas, what it looks like it's stating here is credit. So not a refund, just credit. And I know somebody else that falls under that category too, that was paying for sewer forever that wasn't even going to the sewer on a accessory dwelling unit. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? Close public comment. Okay, moving on to the regular agenda now. We'll start off with item 8, discussion approving the purchasing of a wood chipper for the Public Works Department.
Good evening, city council members. I'm here seeking approval to purchase a wood chipper for the Public Works Department. The reason for the purchase is overall public safety and employee time efficiency. The city of Ione has hundreds of trees in the city that hang over our public roads, city parks that are dangerous to the public. Along with the safety aspect of these trees, the beautification of our city is also in mind. Public Works time efficiency is crucial to the city. When Public Works deals with tree trimming and fallen trees, the city-owned dump truck is brought out and piled high with brush branches, taking many loads to the courtyard to burn, or left piled up at Howard Park waiting to burn. Having a wood chipper would help with time efficiency and fuel, with the ability to chip the branches, meaning less trips to the courtyard. The wood chipper Public Works is asking to purchase is a 2017 BC 1000 XL with 898 hours on it. With the proper care and maintenance, this machine will surpass 5,000 hours. The deal I have negotiated with the owner is 28,000, which is a great deal for hours and condition of the machine. This machine has top of the line safety features, including auto feeding technology that improves employee safety. The cost of a new machine is 73,000. As of right now, we call in outside contractors to trim and chip trees, which cost the city thousands. Also, the wood chips can be stored and used at public parks to lower costs of redoing or building new parks. Thank you for your time and consideration in this purchase.
Thank you, Zach. Any council discussion?
I got a couple of things. So first of all, I think this is a great idea to get a chipper. I think it should be presented in the next budget. The other thing I think is that it shouldn't all come out of park impact fees, because it's like a public works project. So it needs to come out of either public works or general fund or something else, or maybe a split thereof. If you're going to primarily use it at the park, then maybe it gets some, but I hate to see our park fees being used for equipment. So again, I think it's a great idea. I think this should be put on your budget. Hopefully the person can wait, but it should be on the next budget. We're already at the end of this budget, and I would not like to spend any more money that we haven't already approved. That's my 2 cents.
Any other council comments?
It's a used piece of equipment, right? So we're not going to get it with any warranty or anything. Nothing. Okay.
Any other council questions? Comments? Mr. Landscaper?
Well, I think that we definitely need one. There's no question about that. And I'm hesitant to not ask for this now, to go for it, because there's something, we're going to come up with something in our next budget that we're going to want. And I think we can use that money at that time for something else at that time. So maybe that we won't be able to purchase if we waited to buy this next fiscal year. So I'm for buying it.
Okay.
No, I'm concerned about the urgency. You mentioned that you have contracts that you use, contractors that you're paying thousands of dollars to. You have an actual, tree service, for example, that you're paying.
Yes.
Do you have, any actual numbers on that?
I
on what we
do,
paid?
yeah. So I have a couple numbers for Grover Park. We are gonna trim the trees there. All the trees in Grover are overgrown and they're leaning into the streets. One of the quotes that I have on the high side was $10,000. On the low side was 7,000. And I mean, those were two of the bids that I got. The third one, I would be curious if it was higher or lower.
I mean, we did hire people to come in and chip, and the other problem was they would just leave it in the middle of the road
Exactly.
all the time. Or right where the tree fell.
Yep. So
Chip.
what I would like to see is us be able to take this chipper and we are able to stockpile the chips that we chip and put them into our parks, and we don't have to purchase more chips. And, you know, it'll save money in the long run of having chips of our own and all that.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's a good idea and it's a good buy. I'm afraid if you gave it up now, and we told you in 5 months, go find one, we're gonna be paying 60 grand for one, so.
Yes, sir.
So I'm for it, so.
I just have one more comment. I do agree with Don though about the splitting up the money.
Any other council discussion?
Well, where is the money coming from?
Where was the money coming for the Grover Park, renting out the chipper? Where was that coming from? And was that approved? Because you could use that fund.
It says that the funding source is park impact fees.
Yeah, but he said that, the head of director of, Public Works said that they were gonna do Grover Park at 10 grand. So where was the 10 grand coming from? Because then you could use that 10 grand towards this and lessen of an impact to the Parks Fund.
It's going to come from the Parks Fund.
Well, that was also going to come from the Parks Fund.
Any other questions? Or open up public comment? Okay, public comment?
As was mentioned, this man knows equipment and he's getting a good buy. Like he says, if you wait a month, that might be gone. And you might be paying $60,000 or $70,000, as was mentioned. It really don't make no sense when you need it. Thank you.
Gary Thomas, you heard my concerns earlier from the Creek Committee. That chipper would be a very useful tool in the creek as well as the parks and everywhere else. So Kenny was talking about it before Zach came on board, I believe. I'm not sure about the timing when Zach came on. We're for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Close public comment? Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Public Works to purchase a 2017 Vermeer BC 1000 XL wood chipper for $28,000.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. One no.
Would have liked to see an RFP.
Move on to originally item 9, discussion of approval of batting cages at Howard Park for Amherst County Little League West.
Hello, good evening, Selena with Parks and Rec. So about a month or two ago, Amador County Little League West approached us about putting in batting cages at Howard Park. They are non-motorized batting cages at this time. They are approximately 15 by 70 feet. And I went out with the field superintendent and kind of walked, and we came up with a couple of different places where they would work well. But we ultimately decided that we both agreed in 2 separate locations rather than putting the batting cages together. It takes up a ton of space. So to keep access points open and to keep away from possible flooding and problems like that, putting them in two different locations seemed the best idea. So the two locations that we came up with was one between fields 1 and 4, which if you're coming in from the side access, the gravel road, not the main entrance, it's that area, that access road, and it would be up against field 4 along the fence line adjacent to there. And that would be useful for kids on that side, either field practicing so they could bat before they go up and play. The other batting cage could go in between fields 2 and 3 down lower along the fence line at field 3. And that would give the kids that are playing at those two fields access to practice before they go and play. So all in all, that splits it up, takes less of a, makes less of an eyesore, takes out the issue that we wouldn't be able to access something or a roadway in the future, kind of keeps them tucked away and out of the way. The only thing that you're really going to see is that the fencing is tall, it's 12 feet tall. So there's no way to avoid seeing that when you're at the park. But from all vantage points, those seem to be the best locations. They are suggesting building these at no cost to the city. They would be building them with donations and volunteers. And so staff didn't see any reason why that would not be a good addition to the baseball fields at the park.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from council?
Who's gonna maintain them?
Baseball will maintain them most of the time. They're 6 months out of the year. If they are open and usable to the public, that question did come up. Will they be usable to everyone all year long? And yes, they would be. They're not motorized, so it's just a concrete pad with a fence around it, and that's it. So you just step in with your ball and your bat and you practice. So there isn't really anything to maintain other than sweeping or blowing it, with leaves, that sort of thing. If there is ever some maintenance needed for the fencing or anything like that, baseball would do the maintenance on that.
And the lights for later on?
The lights there are
Electricity, I'm sorry.
There is no electricity needed for now. They're non-motorized batting cages. At a future date, if they decide to add the motorized part, they will need to come back in and request a permit for that, for the electrical. They have expressed that they don't intend to do that for the immediate future.
It was in here, so I thought I'd ask.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I don't have.
No?
Thank you, Selena.
Thank you. Open up to public comment. Any public comment?
Good evening. I'm Wayne Hewitt with Amador County Little League West. And I just wanted to add, thank you very much. That was well spoken. But some of the reasons for these cages, one of the greatest reasons is safety. What we have now in one of those locations, we already warm up pitchers and we don't so much use them as batting cages as pitchers warming up is there's no fencing and there's no way to stop an errant ball. And so we have the potential either that your balls go toward the houses, not that they would go that far, but they go that direction and into the weeds. And if we were to turn around, you're throwing baseballs toward bleachers. So there's really nowhere for 13 or 14-year-old kids, which is that one near field 4, to warm up their pitchers and work with a pitcher before they put them into the game to keep the flow of the game. We get the added bonus of using them as batting cages would just be a bonus, but safety and, we did a little research. Other parks in our community, in our county have batting cages. Cribs in Sutter Creek, for example, has a beautiful batting cage. And as far as I know, it's not motorized. That's not much of a topic to us to motorize them because I think a lot of it's going to be pitchers and catchers. And then one-on-one with a coach with some toss ball. So safety is a big reason for it. And we will maintain it and provide all the things needed to build it. Anything we come up short on donations, we'll provide from our league. It's actually been a long time dream of our league and movement that we've been trying to get this done. So I really appreciate your consideration on it. And I was thankful for Parks and Recs approving it as they did. If you have any questions of me or no? No? Okay.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Close public comment? Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve batting cages at Howard Park for Amador County Little League West.
Second.
We have first and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Ayes have it. All right, moving on to item 1. Introduction and waive the first reading by substitution of title only ordinance number 534, amending the start time of the regular meeting to allow for closed session before 6 p.m. and set the public hearing for March 4th, 2025.
Yes, Councilmember, this is my first item of the evening. It's continuous discussion from earlier about what time to hold closed sessions and the best way to do that. Recently, we've been holding special meetings at 5 p.m. for closed session, so the open session portion can start at 6 p.m. What this change in the ordinance do would formalize that closed sessions would begin before 6 p.m. so long as it is agendized properly. I know if it's done this way, it might save Madam Clerk and I a little work in the agenda preparation because everything would be included in one agenda. It wouldn't be 2 agendas. We don't have the procedure of holding 2 separate meetings. But ultimately, it's really at what time does council want to start holding closed session, and changing the ordinance is certainly one way to do that. And this would allow closed sessions to begin before 6 p.m. as specified in the ordinance.
We waiving the reading?
It's part of the motion, recommended action. Yeah.
Any other council comments, questions?
So there's going to be a public hearing on March 4th. Is that correct?
This is for ordinances. It requires 2 meetings, introduction of the ordinance and then adoption. So this would come back. But you could discuss the content of it and suggest changes.
What's the fiscal impact of this process?
Minimal, other than
Your time,
staff time and noticing costs.
noticing costs, public hearing.
Yeah, I mean, yes, anytime city attorney is preparing documents or ordinances, that goes into our time.
Does it go into your retainer or does it go into?
Well, that depends on the month. Wait, you have us on retainer for 40 hours at a fixed sum, and then anything after that would be hourly.
So are we getting into discussion just on the ordinance tonight? Nothing else?
Just this agenda, for example, what else would you?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot of little nuances that really haven't ever brought up, and this protocol manual appearing out of nowhere certainly has a lot of information. One of the provisions is that if a council member cannot be paid twice. So if the meetings are before 5 o'clock, that would, and if it doesn't say when the closed sessions are going to be, you can bet they're going to be in the middle of the afternoon. So what are we going to do about the people that are on a salary during that time that are on council? Are we going to take away their $200? It says clearly, if they are paid by another source of income, they will not be paid their stipend. And it actually says it twice. So that's one item we need to address. For me, that means I'm going to take a pay cut. I'm not going to use my leave balances to come to a meeting and make a nickel. So, I mean, for me to come, even at 5 o'clock today, I had to take a half hour off. That's when I ran for council. That was not part of it. And I understand it's easier. I mean, I'm going to talk till I'm blue in the face because the majority of the council is going to vote this in because it's and they all have very flexible jobs.
Okay.
Can I finish what I was saying now, if I may? So, of course, I've been complaining about this, not just this year, but years in the past. So, I mean, basically, this should have happened January 1. We should have had this discussion. We should have not been holding closed session meetings at 5 o'clock. It should have not been the whim of the mayor. It should have been like we're having a discussion now. That's how it should have been handled, and it wasn't. And so Allison brings up a point which I didn't even know that was in the protocol manual, but we'll talk more about the protocol manual in another item. It's always been 6 o'clock. It's in the ordinance code for 6 o'clock. We had a public hearing a couple of years ago. Everybody wanted to stay at 6 o'clock. So I'm for having it stay at 6 o'clock. I think that when you go earlier and earlier, you're starting to exclude people from running for council. And I don't think that's a good idea. So I would rather keep it at 6 as it is now. And if there was, like today, we did have a lot of closed session stuff. And typically in the past, the mayor reaches out and so does the city clerk and says, hey, we got a load of stuff on closed session tonight. You can either be here till 11 o'clock or can you make it at 5 o'clock? And I, for one, I'll make it at 5 o'clock if that's what the scenario is. But there has been multiple times this year where there was no reason to have that closed session meeting at 5 o'clock. It was over in 20 minutes. Everybody sat around for half an hour until 6 o'clock came around. So again, I'm probably going to get outvoted, but I would like it to stay at 6 o'clock.
Any other council comments? Open up the public comment.
I've been going to council meetings for many, many years, and they always, until two people got on the council that didn't like it and had it changed. It was they had it done for 5 o'clock for, I don't know, since the city started in 53. So I don't know what the big deal is. You know that when you take the job. And it was that way when the councilman got here. They changed it. So I don't know what the big deal is. It should be 5 o'clock. Thank you.
I don't want to lose money.
Any other
Be out here till 11 and 9.
Any other public comment?
Diane Ratton. I ran for council because the meeting started at 6 o'clock and I was able to attend. When I came on council, the closed sessions were moved to the end so that the public was not inhibited by the closed session information. They came at 6, the meeting started, we did closed session at the end. By moving a meeting to 5 o'clock, you are limiting the number of people who can run for council. While the council today may look okay with the 5 o'clock, you have flexible schedules. That doesn't mean in 2 years or 5 years, the people that want to run will be able to run and attend a 5 o'clock meeting. I never think it's a good idea to limit a pool of people who want to serve the public.
Thank you. Any other public? Oh, Gary.
I served 8 years for the city proudly, and I took a lot of time off from Mule Creek to go to the different committees that everybody's forgetting about also that you have to go to. It's not just council, it's you have a whole bunch of myriad of different committees. What do you have? Wastewater and everything else that probably meets in the daytime, and meeting with your representatives from senators to supervisors to everybody else. So it's unfortunate that some people do have to take time off and have probably private jobs. I had the luxury of a state job, but yes, I used my leave credits to do that. So in your consideration, when you go forward on this, just consider that there's just more than city council regular agenda items. There's committees and everything else. Thank you. Bye.
Maybe we should get
Thank you,
paid
Gary.
more,
Any other public comment?
right?
Close public comment? Any other discussions? I'll say one thing. One of the reasons I've always fought this ever since I got on the council. It's always staff asking me to do this and also legal because of the financial cost for, the people that work on the staff have to go home, then they come back, and then they gotta stay later, like our city clerk. If you do it right, they get off work, they go right into closed session, it works out smoother. You don't have the attorneys hanging out here for extra hours. So that was one of the reasons I've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Well, there's another reason too.
That's my reason.
He's made
Any
it very
other-
clear
Comment from
in public.
council?
I thought we'd have actually more public comment on this, so, yeah, well, we'll have a public hearing, that's right, but I have nothing right now.
Anything, Councilmember Mitchell?
No, I think, I like to see closed session done before the meeting, because I like to see the people and have them be able to respond that evening. I'm not drawing a line in the sand at 5 o'clock. Maybe it's 5:30, maybe it's 6 and we start later, but the time issue, I understand. We all sit on committees. We all have different times that we have to take off and come to cover items. And that's what you run. That's what you sign up for when you run. I'm anxious to hear what the public has to say at the public hearing, if they would prefer a closed session before the meeting, or if they prefer it after the meeting, or maybe they don't care. But I think it's worth finding out.
All right, do we make a motion on this or?
Yes, I was just, before we do, I would add just the way it's written, it doesn't confine you to having to hold it before 6 PM. It would really be
It
based on
also,
that council's preference if they wanted to begin before 6 PM meeting to meeting.
it also doesn't say it has to be at 5 or before.
No.
So that leaves it open for any time of the day. And since it doesn't seem to be specific to urgent matters anymore, like it was last year. Last year, we had to provide a reason as to why it was a special meeting and why it was urgent.
Well, the purpose of this change is that so it wouldn't be a special meeting before, it would all be part of one regular meeting, one agenda. So the way we're doing it right now, this would make that change.
So that you would change the regular meeting to 5, let's say 5 o'clock. The way this is written.
Closed sessions only. Closed sessions could happen before
Got it.
6 PM only, not open sessions.
So this is not touching on
The
special meetings.
No,
It's
this
just
is it's proposed as a cure to some of the confusion we've had about having a special meeting and that.
There hasn't been confusion. We've been doing it outside of the Muni Code.
Well,
Any other discussion from council? Someone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I guess I will.
I can do it. I'm gonna make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we have the
Just read them.
public hearing for March 4th, 2025 go forward for the public to weigh in to allow regular meetings to allow for closed session before 6 PM.
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nope.
No,
Who knows? Ayes have it. Moving on to item 2, discussion of requirements and procedure for censure of council members.
Councilmember who? Please read it.
Discussion of requirements and procedure for censure of council members.
yes, I will preface this, that this is not a censure hearing of any specific council member. It's on there to explain what the requirements and the procedure are, because in my review of my own protocol manual and code, it doesn't lay out a very specific procedure to follow. Yeah, I drafted it.
Okay.
Uh,
There's my name on it. Let's put
well,
that
it
on
was
record.
initiated as a request. So before this procedure happens in earnest, I'd like to.
We're not going to slide over that. Okay. We're going to put it on the
don't think-
record.
No, I don't think we are. To have council generally agree on the framework that this will follow. You can also choose to adopt a policy if the council so wants. I included a couple examples of what the procedure might follow. One example included was any council member initiating a censure has to submit a somewhat detailed complaint because a person subject to censure is entitled to fair notice and hearing before the substance of those claims are discussed on the record. So that has to happen first. Another policy I included was if someone is initiating censure, immediately an ad hoc committee is appointed, and then they investigate the complaint and make a recommendation to the council. Those are a couple examples of the process that we could follow. Without a policy, generally what we would follow is a notice is submitted to me. It would be provided to the person subject to the censure, and then we hold a hearing to discuss if that should proceed based on whatever council decides or if they want further investigation. But it would be a series of steps. First, notice, then council would discuss it and see if it actually meets that threshold showing, to see if it's just a warning, reprimand, or an actual formal resolution of censure. So I see it as a 2-meeting sequence after notice is provided. So based on what council directs tonight, that would be the process we follow, unless you want to change the procedure and have some ad hoc committee look into the complaint or investigation, or set some threshold requirements for what actually needs to be provided in writing before the process formally starts.
We do have a procedure. Your staff report says we don't.
I would like to know where it is. I didn't find one, but I know it's been done in the past and you followed a certain process, but I didn't find it in my review. But I know city attorneys change and have different recommended procedures, but happy to follow the custom and any adopted policy.
Well, I wasn't here at the time. Councilman Atlin was here.
Yeah, just going to weigh in. First of all, this whole thing is just harassment. Let's just flat out say it. You shouldn't be allowed to say, I want councilperson X to be censured. If you want to have, let's revisit our policy on how we censure council members, or coming up later on will be how we remove people from commissions that we don't like. You shouldn't be naming names. And Allison's name is in here and Amber's name is on here later on. And that's just totally out of line. That's just total harassment. There was a censure some years ago, and I believe that there was an investigation, and the person, there was first of all discussion on, we think this, person did this, this, and this. Does that rise to a censure? There was an investigation. The person had ample opportunity to say their side of the events, and it turned out that, out of the 6 censures, 5 of them were not censured, and 1 of them was. So for sure there was a policy there where we did an investigation and so on and so forth. I did read some of these from your other cities, and they're a little bit more detailed than ours, which is good. But I mean, the first thing is there just can't be a way where someone just decides, oh, I'm going to censure someone. I'm going to censure myself. You have to have a reason for it before it even goes to where we are now. So again, if you want to do a censure policy, fine. I'm not against updating the Muni code for whatever reasons, but the way this one was handled again was just completely botched, and puts us in liability, which that is a censure in itself. So that's my 2 cents.
It hasn't been formally initiated yet, but before anything like that happens, I did want to bring it to council to talk about what the procedure will be to follow.
Any other council comments?
And for the request, it's just following the council's policy on how council members initiate agenda items. And as of now, any council member can initiate a request for an agenda item. And if 2 people request it, it's prioritized for the next meeting.
Yes, but they have to have justification. You can't just say, hey, so-and-so, and I wanted this on the agenda. You have to support it with justification. And that wasn't done here.
Well, this item was just a discussion of what that process
Session
might
with my
be.
name on it.
Well, it was requested on record at the last council meeting, so I'll take the feedback. I didn't think it was a
Yes, you are
secret.
our city attorney.
Any other council questions? Do we open this up to public comment?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll open
On-
up to
on
public
which-
comment.
Okay.
It's purely procedure for how a center might start or proceed through a process. It's nothing about you.
Attention.
Got an order. Good evening, my name is Sue. I would love to see a process of procedure without names. I think our city would greatly, it would be to everybody's advantage if we had clearly written policies and procedures and we followed them. Circling back to our municipal code, our code has not been updated for a really long time, and it's not Janice's fault. But there are changes that have been sitting out there that have not made it. So there's a lot of information. If we, the public, go online and what we see, that's not reality. Janice is the only one who has a book someplace that has all of the changes there. So I would ask your help on trying to get the municipal code updated so the public is able to see all of that. That's the start. Thanks.
I'd like to make a comment. I've explained this to Mrs. Nemeth
This is out of
3 or
order.
4 times already,
This is out of order.
explaining to you that we don't do the updates every year. We do them every other year, depending on how many ordinances we have. And the new ordinance, if you look at your Muni Code online, will show you the ordinance that have been approved but have not been adopted actually codified in the Muni Code. So every month I get
Point of
an
order.
email from her, why is the Muni Code not updated?
That's not quite true, Janice.
This
Yes.
is- can I- a
How
point
many
of
times
order.
Have I heard that from you?
This is public comment.
So,
Point of
They're not
order
running the meeting.
to the mayor.
Okay, go right ahead. Let her attack the
Thank
public.
you for your input. I believe that what I stated is accurate and true.
No,
And I believe I have not sent you, every month. So, but thank you
excuse
for
me
your.
for not saying every month, but it's been several times asking about the updates to the Muni Code. And if you check with the other cities, that's their policy too. So it's not something that I'm holding back. It's a procedure that we follow.
And thank you, Janice.
Thank you.
So once again, written policies and procedures followed. Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Hi, I'm Demi Wright. And I just wanted to say, and I don't quite know like if this applies to like council in the public and the internet, like wherever. But I have been someone who's named numerous times by council members, and I was removed from a committee because the mayor at the time didn't like me, and I had done nothing wrong. I missed 2 meetings in 2 years. One the first year when I reported that I was on a work travel trip ahead of time, and one the second year when my son had an all-star baseball game that he was pitching at, and I sent an email with excusing myself from that Parks and Rec meeting. I've also been named publicly on the Ion News and Safety to over 8,000 people, assuming in adding that maybe I should go have another by the then mayor, Allison LaFaney. I've been embarrassed in front of the entire town. I've been accused of things I've never done, including ignoring her when I see her in public or looking away. I don't have a problem. You look down when I speak most of the time.
No.
And so I'm speaking now to say I have been
I welcome
in
it
this
right now.
spot and I don't appreciate it. And I agree. I think you guys need to be held accountable for your actions. And I've emailed every single one of you except Jody, but including Diane, who's here in the audience, asking for help. I've had anxiety. I've had to get an attorney, and this is unacceptable. So yes, censure, hold you guys accountable. You can't treat people like this. You're not a bully. And I will say it, and I'm not alone of people who have been emailed at 1:52 in the morning by our then mayor, harassing me because I did something that she doesn't agree with. And I'm not going to be quiet about it. I'm not going to not be out in public, but I should not have been removed from my appointment. I was very good at what I was doing as a volunteer, and I have said that before, and I think you guys need to be held accountable for how you speak to people and how you act in your seat and in public.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, Danny.
I'm all for censoring. I know Dominic once put on Facebook that I had been in the office in there with the city manager, and I was never in that office until he invited me in one day for a meeting. And then Allison said that I was driving by her house on Facebook and this and that, and my wife put on there, well, then put it on the Facebook. And Allison replied, well, go down to the police department if you want to see the tape. So I asked the chief of police, and he said he never got no tape. So you got a couple of city councilmen that say stuff on Facebook to piss everybody off, and I own. I'm not going to tell you what my wife said about Allison. I would never repeat it. But I said, that's beside the point. And I was really pissed off when I went to the police department. They said, I didn't go to the police department. I asked the chief if he had the videotape, and he said no. And then that really pissed me off. So if you're going to censor, I'm all for it, because she shouldn't be doing that. Because I wrote, her place where she lives is a public street, and anybody can drive by there. If I was to censor everybody or complain about everybody that drove by my street, my God, I'd have to have 1 million video. So I'm all for censoring councilmen. And I don't know what the big problem is, but they always say things about people and they get away with it. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Sergeant Story that he
Like
sent
a
it to you.
couple of councilmen didn't have a problem censoring my son, not a bit, put his name on it. And he did more for this city than probably any of you guys ever did. He got the liner for the ponds that he never got any reward for. He got them cheaper. You never did nothing about that. That was before. Then you back him when he gets kicked out of there because he brought a guy to test the pile of crap that we're getting fined for. And yeah, you guys, it's fun when two of you councilors are still sitting here. They can do that, and you don't want to censor nobody else. Yes, get away with it. That just burns me. Yeah, and you tried saying he trespassed into the sewer plant when he got a hold of the pond, the pile of crud they dug out, and he was going to have the guy test it, haul it off for nothing, and then it cost you $150,000. Yeah, great, thank you.
Any other public comment?
So I'm confused, city attorney. Is this a agenda item about a censure to Councilmember LaFane?
No.
Or is
Sounds
this
like
on
it.
a policy change for the Muni Code? Because it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, this is an indictment to Councilmember LaFane rather than a discussion of policy.
That agenda item has been requested, but this meeting is just on the procedure that will follow.
Okay.
But the public has a right to comment on the agenda items.
So if the agenda item is the policy, does the policy that you're proposing set down a criteria of what would be deemed censurable?
My preferred policy would, yes.
Is that what you're presenting to the council? Is a censurable offenses?
That would be included in the policy. I've included some samples that would be for council discussion if they want to embark on a new policy, or, I mean, I think they censored the last censure didn't follow a formal policy, a process, but not a formal policy.
Okay, so this is to clarify a policy, not an actual censure at this point.
Correct. Well, yes, a censure has been requested, and this would for everyone to agree on the process that follows before that actually happens.
So we can discuss any council member then.
Well, you would have to initiate an agenda item.
Well, the agenda item is here.
This agenda item is discussion of what the procedure is for a censure.
Okay, so if somebody were to come up here and make fraudulent claims about a contractor that were proven to be false, that would be a liability to the city, right?
I don't know what exactly,
I'm talking about when someone plopped a
it would be,
flow meter that was not the flow meter and accused the prior contractor of committing fraud
it would
in the
be,
city.
I would say it's outside the scope of what we're talking about now.
It was a turbidity meter, not a flow meter.
You're very
Like-
selective on.
Well, we're not, this isn't about specific conduct or the charges brought. The public has a right to comment on what the agenda is, but the council has a different standard.
We just had the city clerk attack a public comment. So,
True.
okay.
Any other public comment?
Dave Livingstone, Wildflower. Mr. Attorney, it says here on item number 2, discussion of requirements and procedure for censure of council members. So that's what this discussion is?
Yes, but yes.
Okay, are you going to establish and talk about what the procedure is and the requirements right now, tonight?
Yes, yes, that's part of the discussions tonight.
So you're gonna have, the council will have a discussion on it and then vote on it?
A formal vote isn't required, but it depends what council wants to do with the procedure. Some of it is just me informing what the process is, but I'm also proposing some policies that they could adopt if they want to formalize what the procedure will be.
Okay, so this is a procedure discussion.
Yes, explanation and discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Any other public comment? No public comment? We'll close public comment. Other discussion, questions from council?
I'm going to add the protocol manual if we're going to, because you refer to it a bunch of times. The protocol manual, we've never even, I mean, I've seen it, but for example, I don't know if Jody's seen it. He's a new council person. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what we should do, because I didn't see it for like 3 years.
I have one at home.
So, but if you're going to hold council to the standard of the protocol manual, then they should get the protocol manual. They should sign for the protocol manual. The other thing was the employee handbook was supposed to replace the protocol manual, and I'm not sure where that is with, did it replace it? It was supposed to replace it. I'm not sure if it did or it didn't. But while you're going in, I think it's a good idea that you have some clear guidelines on the censure. I think you should, if this comes up again, don't put anyone's name on it. I mean, it looks like it was an attack on someone, and then everybody came up, and instead of the mayor controlling the meeting by saying, we're not talking about anyone specifically, we're just talking about the policy, he let it go on and on. So I think that having clear what violations are that you can be censured for. I mean, if I say, Andy, I don't like your hat, and he's going to censure me for that, I mean, if that's what the council wants, I guess, then that's in there. But it needs to be clear. What are the things that you get censured for? And they should be, major infractions like harassment and exposing the city to liability and things like that. That's what I censure people for. I mean, if we have a disagreement, we have a disagreement. I mean, but I think you got some work to do on. I've read your various ones. I don't really have a preference whether you can, mix them together or whatever. But we do need some very clear guidelines on what raises to the censure. And then you have the 3 other, admonishment, a speaking to, and then you got a censure. So I think that's a good thing to put in the Muni code.
It wouldn't have to be in the, it could be.
Or in the whatever protocol manual or whatever it is. But the council got to sign for that. So you have to give them the protocol manual and say, you got to read this. Like everywhere I've ever worked, you have an employee handbook or something like that, except for here, where, what's in the protocol manual? Well, nobody told me about the protocol manual, and I'm supposed to abide by the protocol manual. It's not online. Did you find it on the website? I didn't.
No.
I could barely find the employee handbook on the website. And these are key books that the staff have to adhere to and the council has to adhere to, and you can't find them anywhere. So they need to be, when they get finalized, they need to be put on there so that everybody knows what they are supposed to do.
I think at least I got the protocol manual the day I was elected.
You don't follow it.
Good for you. Good. That was supposed to be.
Any other council discussion?
I think we need specific policy and procedure. And I think it should be drawn out. We've had enough of the public stand up that obviously are concerned about accountability, and rightly so. That policy needs to be rock solid and it needs to be followed.
Includes newspaper articles.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely need strong guidance and I've read this, all of this. I don't know if everybody here has, but I know I have. And I think you put together some pretty good paperwork here. And but I want to make sure that when we go to censure somebody, that we have the teeth to do so, but we also have the proper protocol, obviously, to do so. But I'm for. Let me state this. I'm going to get off topic. I think the city is a little fed up with the actions of certain things that happen through our council and on social media. And I don't even think we'd be having this discussion right now if that wasn't the case. So let's just call it for what it is.
Talking about me.
I'm talking about several people.
Okay.
Several people. Just about everybody up here but myself. Okay. I gotta give Jack a pass. I'm not too sure, but I know I haven't stated a thing on social media. And or make accusations, make personal attacks. And that's why people out here are frustrated about this. And this is why they come up and they start to say things that really we're getting out of context as far as what this meeting is about and what we're just here to discuss. That will take its place. And that through time. But I want a good, strong policy is all I guess I'm trying to say. I'm a tad frustrated with the bickering up here right now.
Thank you, Jody. Do we make any action on this, or this is just discussion?
It was just discussion, but if a majority of the council is telling me they want a strong policy before formal censure procedures are initiated, then that's what we'll do.
Yep. Yes, I want a strong policy that we can use when we need to use it.
And I would throw harassment in there. Every agency I know has harassment training, and I think we have some too, don't we?
I believe it's required, yeah.
It's required.
So we need to make a motion, or you
No.
just got direction? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to item 3, discussion, consideration of taking public comment from Zoom oral report.
This says a policy consideration for council. I don't know what the council's former policy was with Zoom public comment. It was changing fast during the pandemic. But at this point in time, under the law, it's a discretionary decision for the council if you want to allow public comment by Zoom. There are those legal requirements that if any of the council members are using their remote participation instances, that if a council member is participating by Zoom, then you have to open up the whole meeting to Zoom. As long as I've been here, we haven't had any council members participating remotely because of illness or anything like that. But if you're going to just choose to allow the public to comment by Zoom, you can do that, and that's a council decision.
I'm the one that brought this up, and how it came to my attention is Plymouth had a thing called a Zoom bombing, which I never knew what that was. Anyhow, I guess it's where people can get on there and you can't shut them up. Luckily, we have Chief Alfred running that thing, and this has happened a couple times where he's caught people up there saying derogatory things or whatnot, and he's quick enough to pull them down real quick. So when I talk to Plymouth, what they do is they do like a YouTube thing. It's live, but if you want to communicate, you physically have to come to the meeting. And that's their policy. I don't know what Jackson does, but I know almost all of them don't do Zoom anymore for that reason. And I have no problem people talking on Zoom. It's just, I was worried something, because especially when a couple of times John, not you, Andy was sitting there and he was kind of pointing to John to pull people off, trying to
It
do.
was during the election.
There is some agenda language that we can include, or some announcement before the meeting that, I mean, if that happens, you control it and shut it off. But it's also true that once it happens, it's already inappropriate and obscene, and it's already on the screen in
And
front
I
of
think
everybody. So
what Plymouth did, they told me that you just get on their website and you just click meeting and it's live. It's just right there. You don't have to go through Zoom and no codes and any of that. So I don't know if that's something that's possible.
live streaming is, I mean, the council can decide to do that too by whatever means are available, but allowing public comment by Zoom is certainly a different, I mean, that adds another layer. Because that now you're saying, but everyone in the room provides public comment, and everyone waiting on Zoom with their hand raised also gets to provide public comment.
Right, right.
How many instances did we have last year? Couple?
Instances of,
Where you had to shut somebody's microphone off. Well, actually, everybody's microphone is shut off anyway.
yeah, well, so actually microphones, I shut off quite often, every other meeting or so. And I just have to watch it. And as soon as I see somebody's microphone activate, I turn it off. As for what Mayor Rose was talking about, that happened 3 times. And it was all during the election.
Yeah.
So.
And it wasn't the bombing. I mean, I've seen it. We go through security every Monday. And that particular item kind of went away, especially during the election. But I'm all for public comment. I mean, a lot of people, they can't make it. So I don't see the harm in it. I think it's a benefit.
I feel the same way. I don't want to shut anyone off, but I don't want to go through what Plymouth went through.
You're the one who stopped it.
And I was also told at one time that you couldn't do Zoom legally.
I don't recall.
It wasn't by you, but
yeah.
No, we had public comment all last year.
Yeah, I'm for public comment. I'm not for one person saying that, you can't, it's like 3 and 4 are the same. If the council decides to take Zoom comments, great. If they don't, that's probably a mistake, but it shouldn't be up to one person to just say, we're not taking Zoom anymore. It needs to be a council decision. I think, we should take it. If it becomes a problem, we can deal with it then. It seemed like it was election centric. So maybe, we'll see what the next election's like, but we have very few problems. We didn't have too many people speak. And there are some people that just can't make it to the council meetings. So I'm for having Zoom comment. But if it gets out of hand, we can deal with it then.
Yeah, if it's a minute action by council, if it's not going well and council change its minds, you can do that too.
okay. I'm for that. So. Any other questions before I open up to public comment? Okay, open up public comment.
Hi, I'm just speaking as someone who goes to a lot of government meetings. I think it's a really good idea to keep public comment on Zoom. I mean, I know you have 12 people on right now, and that's including yourself, but I've seen some of your family members, council members on Zoom, and giving them the opportunity to comment is important. It makes it more accessible. We have a lot of older people in our community. The county does public comment by Zoom. They have had no Zoom bombing issues that have caused them to cancel. And I know all the other cities who don't take public comment by Zoom get complaints by their residents that they don't. So I would just highly recommend you keep the public comment on Zoom. It's a smart move, accessible. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Thank you, ma'am.
Any public comment on Zoom?
Yeah.
Is it even
it's not allowed at this time.
All right. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we continue taking public comment on Zoom.
Second.
We have first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No, ayes have it. And I voted yes on that, by the way. I just said no, but for the record, I voted yes.
5-0.
Yes. Okay, item 4, discussion consideration to formally dissolve wastewater committee, finance committee, and economic development committee oral report.
This is from me as well. I personally don't have all the background of each of these committees. My interpretation is that these are standing committees that were formed by the council. Generally, if you're going to dissolve these committees, that would also be a decision of the council. So it's before the council to discuss what's occurring with these committees. If they were more temporary in nature and had a limited purpose and were supposed to end at some point in time, then they'd be more of an ad hoc committee and be dissolved automatically once their task is done. But as far as I know, these are standing committees that council members are appointed to, and if they're dissolved, then the council can vote to dissolve them.
Were all 3 of these done through resolution? Do we know that for sure? How many were put through resolution?
None of them. The 3 were not done by resolution or ordinance.
Not even Creek?
The Creek.
Oh, Creek, excuse me, that one's on there. So from what I'm hearing is, and doing this for a while, a resolution means everyone agrees to build like the Creek Committee, whatever. The wastewater committee was more intended as like a ad hoc committee that just turned into a committee that just kept going. And that is one of the ones, I don't know if we break this into 3 different things or we put it as one whole. Because someone might want to keep, all of us might want to keep finance for whatever reason. So let's just start with wastewater. I can't talk too much about it because we had a meeting today with the Regional Water Board, but one of the reasons that I wanted to basically abolish that one is because we were having miscommunication between Regional Water Board to the wastewater committee to council. So I just wanted to wipe out the middleman and just because we're having such issues is have them speak directly with us. So there's no, they would call it telephoning meetings, which means like in kindergarten, we say purple grasshopper and it comes back pink elephant kind of thing. So that was the reason for that. The finance committee, I again was asked by, and the economic development committee both was asked to me by staff because staff was spending so much time on these, taking their time to try and catch up on their daily jobs. And to me, the Economic Development Committee, I've lived there all my life, and I think Mitzi's got up here a couple times, and the only way you're going to make money is bringing in big business. It ain't going to be like bringing in little tiny shops here and there. They just don't last long on Main Street. And I think the last Finance Committee was their recommendation was to hire a consultant for like 20 grand or something to tell us how to make money in town. And that happens all the time. But just different committees to me seem like they just want to hire outside help to come in and try and tell us stuff that we already know. So that was the 2 reasons I did away with the Finance and Economic Development Committee.
Well, you haven't done away with them yet.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
I know.
So that's my
Let us
reasons
know
behind it.
when we get to speak.
So with that said, I'll open it up to any councilman.
So these were formed by the council and they should be dissolved by the council. Stacy had some reasons that, that's a good reason, but it's not up to one person. It's up to the council. I think the finance committee with the budget coming up, all of these committees also can be, dissolved when their task is done. But another way to do it is just don't have any meetings. That would be another way to do that and keep the committees going. And just so you know, I can't serve on any of these committees anyway, because unless they're later in the day. So I'm not trying to get on a committee, just so you know. I think that out of these, the Economic Development Committee is probably, the weakest one. Hasn't really done a lot since I've been on the council, and I've been on it too. We've tried to get, various people on, but it doesn't seem to work. But whatever the council decides, the reason the Finance Committee was good was because there will be some more meetings during the budget season. That's primarily what we worked on last year when we were on it. I think the more budget meetings you get, the better. And I'm sorry it's a burden on staff. But we're only up here for a short period of time, 3 or 4 years, and we want to try and make a difference, trying to get policies ironed out. And, we don't really discuss, say, the budget. It's a 2-meeting item. And I think it needs more than 2 meetings to really hammer out a good budget. So I'd like to see the Finance Committee stay if possible.
Any
That's
other
it.
council?
As far as the wastewater committee, I brought this up in December. And my suggestion was at least bring the water board issues to the full council. And once we get past the water board issues, because there was a delay, we would bounce back and forth, and then we had a couple of meetings that didn't get posted, so they had to be postponed. So there was probably a good month in between that we lost because the agendas didn't get posted. So my suggestion was at least bring the wastewater committee or wastewater issues to council. Leave the wastewater committee. Maybe it sits dormant for a year or so until we can resolve the water board issues, but to just disband it, we don't know what's going to be like in 2-3 years. We may need it. So if you just want to hibernate it for a little while, I think that's be a better solution than to just get rid of it. As far as the Finance Committee meeting, that group served also as a second pair of eyes. Councilman Mitchell and I were on the Finance Committee when we first got on board. The first thing we did was we audited the ARPA funds, and we saw misuse. We saw a bidding policy not being followed. We wrote a written report. You were acting city manager at the time. The 3 of us did it. That information has never been followed, even though we provided a written report to staff. But that sort of thing is just a second pair of eyes. And I believe our auditors may have asked for it based upon what they were finding. Economic development, I must have asked for 6 meetings last year, never got 1. People were reaching out, they wanted to be involved. Business owners wanted to be involved. We could not get it on the agenda. We reached out to 2 companies, and they don't come in and tell you what you already know. They come in and tell you what you don't know. And these companies worked with small towns, and they knew what worked. They worked a little bit outside the box. We got their proposals in the door, and it just kept dying. We've had how many businesses shut down in the last 6 months? And we're doing nothing. So now we want to shut down the economic development. So I don't know what staff did last year for it, but we didn't even get an agenda. I don't think it's a good idea to shut it down. I think if you reached out to the public, you'd have a lot of interest. Food for Joy, she reached out to us directly. I forwarded the email to George. She never got an email back. So there are people willing to step up. So that's another one. I don't think we should throw these committees away. That's all my 2 cents, 5 cents.
Any other council comments?
You want to go? You got something, Chad?
I just on wastewater right now, I sat on the wastewater committee and I did sit on the finance committee and did such a great job. I was removed from both and felt as lost as the public for the next year because I'm not on any of the committees. So the piece for me would be, I want to see as much in front of the public here. I want them to know what's going on with wastewater. I want them to know what's going on with finances, and I want them to know what's going on with economic development. If we can get rid of the committees and get it more open to the public, I think that's a good move. The wastewater right now is so serious, and we've been so screwed up for so long. We should be having that in front of the entire council, in front of the city, so they can hold our feet to the fire.
I'm a little late to the party because I'm so new to this, so I'm not really apprised of some of it. I was on the finance committee. I was a citizen advisory person on this finance committee last year. I'm a big believer in that. I think that the committee worked very well together. We had people from the public on it. And also, Allison and Jack were on it. And I think some good things came from that. And like she said, nothing didn't come to fruition at that point, but we have had quite a bit of turnover. I'm for the finance committee because I could speak on it. On the wastewater committee, the thing that I hear, I'm like Jack, at this all, I agree with him. I think that a wastewater committee is a good idea, but it needs to be efficient. We're in a situation with our sewer that we can't waste any time. We have 2 meetings a month and stuff. It has to be efficient. So the only thing I would recommend on my part here is that I know about would be the finance committee, and I'm certainly for keeping that open.
Okay, I'll open up the public comment.
Dave Livingstone, Wildflower. On this particular topic, I would have to think that it's beneficial to continue these committees. Particularly when you start talking about finance. I don't understand how you can eliminate a finance committee and not have some kind of feedback that is going to be helpful to the city. So that's pretty important, especially when you look at 5 years, we've been hearing about 5 years of missing audits and so forth. That's troubling. And so to eliminate a finance committee, to not have feedback from the community. And I really think we got to do a better job as a city to communicate with the citizens of this town, because we're missing the boat. I mean, this room here should be packed. We're looking at a golf course that's basically gonna be going bankrupt if something doesn't happen. There should be people in here packing this whole room, and I don't see it. And I'm wondering why. Do the homeowners in the community over there where the golf course is, do they even have a copy of the contract with the city? That seems to be going on for a couple years now, a debate about it. And do all the people over at Castle Oaks actually know what's in that contract? Have they read the words and the language? This is the kind of thing that should be coming out to the community and having them participate. And I understand some of you are frustrated because people don't want to participate, but it works two ways. It works two ways. So my suggestion is not to close down the committees, but find a way where they become more valuable. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
I don't think I've missed too many meetings, but I'll say this, the wastewater committee meeting, you other councilmen never heard everything. Look at West Yost. We spent $450,000 for a 22 title and they didn't get that done. $450,000, people. We spent that much on a West Yost the last couple of years, and they have this for a Title 22 and they ain't even got that done. They want another 50,000, I think. So what the heck is going on here? I mean, the wastewater committee should have been bringing this up. And I think even the finance committee meeting, the last time we had an audit, the last 2 times, if I remember right, Larry Bean said he wouldn't certify the audit. So it was no dang good to begin with because he couldn't get the information from the finance committee people. Couldn't get full information. You look it up, it's not certified. So I think if you're gonna have a finance committee, everybody ought to be there. You make a special meeting and you have a finance meeting for everybody to be there. In the same way with the sewer. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Thank you, Larry.
If you're going to get rid of the wastewater committee, then I would suggest you have a standing agenda item of wastewater until the situation is resolved with regional. I just heard the mayor say that they had a meeting this week, and it's not an agenda item. It hasn't been an agenda item for this council since January. So if it's such a hot ticket item and it's so important that the public be aware of it, why isn't it on the agenda?
Any other public comment? Close public comment. My input again is, we definitely need to, do away with wastewater committee at this moment. It sounds like everyone still wants to do finance, which is, I'm great with that. That's fine. And from what I'm hearing, economic development committee isn't doing much. So,
But we couldn't get a meeting.
so does someone want to make a motion on what we keep or not, or you want to go item
I'll
by
make a
item,
motion
or
that
what,
we
how you want to
keep all
do it?
3 of them. He asked me to make a motion.
I did not say to make a motion. I was talking to the attorney. Do you think we should divide it into 3 different votes?
If you wanted, I would leave it to whatever motion is made and do it from there.
Okay.
You could do it one by one, or you could do it all, someone could make a motion for all at once.
Oh, go ahead. Do you want to make your motion?
I made a motion to keep all 3 committees. Maybe hibernate the wastewater at least for 6 or 7 months, so everything comes to council. I think the finance committee and the economic development committee, for economic development, we owe it.
You're making a motion, not a speech.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? No.
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 We'll have it. Okay. Someone want to make a motion to keep the finance committee?
I'll make a motion to keep the finance committee.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
I'll make a motion to keep the wastewater committee.
Second.
We have first and second on the wastewater committee. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? No.
No.
Noes. And the last one is economic development. I want to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to keep the Economic Development Committee.
I'll second that one.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Noes? No. Ayes have it.
Very good.
Okay, moving on to item 5. Justin, discussion action on capital needs update sand filter project at the tertiary treatment plant and adoption of resolution making findings that this project is citywide improvement eligible for use of wastewater connection fees.
This is actually me again, unless you want to break and Justin can reintroduce the
Oh, no.
project.
Okay, nope.
No. This is the project that the council approved at the last council meeting. The motion was to approve the project subject to confirmation that the wastewater fund could be used for the project. The total cost was approximately $600,000. I do appreciate all of staff's work, Andrea and Justin, the past couple of weeks. In that wastewater fee fund, you have 2 sources that are used on capital improvements. One is from the monthly fees you collect from ratepayers. Another one is connection fees, or what you often hear as impact fees. They're used for similar purposes, but have restrictions. Normally, the documentation for each of those fees, when you establish it, lays out which types of improvements you can spend it on. Some of the gaps in that documentation is lacking regarding to what extent you can spend those monies on the tertiary treatment plant. So there's enough money in the wastewater connection fee fund. However, to be able to use the wastewater connection fees, I brought a resolution to you, and the council would have to find that the tertiary plant in this project is in some way critical to the long-term wastewater system that will also serve ratepayers. That in some way, this tertiary plant is not just for ARSA and CDCR water, but the city has long-term sewer improvement plans to also use this plant to treat municipal wastewater. So if the council wants to use these wastewater connection fees for that project, we want to make sure that those fees are actually being spent on the purpose for which they're enacted. And for wastewater connection fees, that's for long-term city growth, capital improvements. So if the tertiary plant is something that will ultimately serve in some meaningful way municipal ratepayers, then these funds are eligible to use. And I know staff is working on a couple studies that will be brought to council. One's the rate study for user fees. Another is the Nexus study for impact fees. And I'm getting the sense after discussions with staff that tertiary plant projects and expansion will be included in those studies. They're just not adopted yet. So this resolution is the way to bridge that gap and allow council to find that these fees are really intended to serve municipal ratepayers in the long term.
Yeah, and I think everyone agreed last meeting that we all want to do this. We just want to make sure the funding was coming right. And another thing to add to what you're saying, most people don't know that the backwash filters at the tertiary plant have a pipeline that go to the wastewater plant. So theoretically, they're already connected through those filters.
Right.
And if you did not, let's say, maintain the pipe, the filters ain't going to work. So the filter is actually a part of our plant when it gets backflushed the other way. So that's more of a physical connection that does exist. So I think we all agreed to do this. So any other discussion from council?
I just want to read this one thing, and there's been various wastewater studies done. It's always been my understanding that one day we're all going to be running everything through the tertiary plant, and one day it's going to be required. But it does say here in objective 1.1 on that 2007 study, it says that the city's future wastewater flows and meets the city's goal of tertiary treatment of all municipal and ARSA effluent. So they were contemplating back in 2007 that they were going to do that. So the other thing is, Castle Oaks residents have put in $7.6 million in connection fees into this capital improvement fund. And they've put in another $2 million in the $8.70 per month. So that's another $2 million. So they put in like $10 million into future wastewater stuff. And so I'm tired of hearing about how they don't put anything in, because they put in the lion's share. And this is a critical component for not just the tertiary plan, but for the future of Ione. And I think that it's been tied up in various studies, and we need to move forward with this.
Other council questions, comments?
I want to move forward.
Okay, I'll open it up to public comment. Any public comment? No public comment? Close public comment. Someone want to make a motion?
If I could ask for the motion to be adoption of the resolution, for the motion to include adoption of the resolution.
Go ahead.
I wasn't here at that meeting, so I'm going to abstain. I didn't get the information. So.
That's for myself. Never mind anything.
Sorry,
Someone want to make a motion?
just no one make it.
Okay, I'll make a resolution 2025XX, a resolution of the city council of the city of Ione finding that the sand filter reconditioning project is eligible for use of wastewater connection fees.
Second.
We have first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Okay, item 6, discussion of sewer line lateral maintenance and report from Justin on Shakely Lane.
This one was a presentation item at the last meeting, but we did not have it on the agenda, so I wanted to make sure to bring it back so it's properly agendized and for council to discuss it further. And I know council also was interested in maybe changing the ordinance to have the city be responsible for the side sewer laterals, and that's something you could also discuss and provide direction to staff to investigate further or bring back an ordinance. But for now, I just wanted to turn it over to Justin so he could summarize his presentation last meeting and have it as part of the agenda.
Yeah, so we were talking last time about sewer laterals and taking them on. I'm just here tonight to, give council awareness, taking this on, just consideration possibly in increments instead of all at once. Just because as it stands with our laterals throughout the town, a lot of them have no access points for myself as, the maintainer of them to get into them. The only way to get into them at the moment for a lot of properties is to go through the residence lateral. That would cause a lot of liability issues if I was to try to clean a lateral going in from a residence property. So just things for you guys to consider. In regards to 415 Shakely, which has been, the big topic. It's nobody in this room's fault of what's going on there. It's really unfortunate that it was tied in the way it was. I actually contacted the plumber that we had contracted to go out there and camera it, and I said, hey, I need to go over this one more time with you before this meeting. And he further elaborated that it actually comes down and 90s and then drops into the sewer main, which is just insane. And it's definitely a part of, the issue over there. So I'll leave it to you, council. I can have a quote to you guys by Friday to replace that and fix it. And I can be out there next week tearing up the concrete and getting it repaired. So it's up to you guys what you want to do. I'm at your service.
Thank you, Justin.
So currently, is this the problem that you're finding? Is it on their property, the street property, or because as of now, which we want to change, everyone is liable from their house all the way to the main in the middle of the street or wherever the main is. We want to change that back to how it used to be, which I believe was the property line. Where is their issue? Is it on their property line side, or is it on the city street side, or is it right on the line, or?
And I just want a clarifying question before you walked off. Did you say that the pipes aren't connected to the line, the main line, that they go to a manhole? Is that a sewer? What did you say?
Oh,
Say
yeah,
that
yeah,
again.
no, it's all right. So they drop down from the property, but they make a very weird, unusual angle, which is become a common thing that I'm finding in this town because
So somebody took some shortcuts.
very, very many shortcuts. So yeah, a shortcut was taken. To answer your question, Mayor Rhodes, as far as city liability or, responsibility, at the moment, no, none of the issues taking place there is on the city, but part of it is under the road, right? Let the city, they'd have to ask for permission from the city to get under there, right? We're seeing a lot of issues to where the property line ends and it goes under a curb or under the street and then enters our sewer main, which at the moment, the way the code's written for the city of Ione, the city is not responsible for that until it touches the main and drops into, the sewer flow.
For clarification purposes, maybe you could tell the council how many situations like this you think exist in the city of Ione, where you have 4 laterals connected to one line.
I've encountered a lot. I found one on, you got Raymond. I found one. I got a call out on one. Let's see, the area where I had the residence Nooner right here. Do you guys see this? I mean, no, you can't. The sewer line comes from this residence and goes at a 90 right there and then goes up the road. that's a big problem right there itself, but you got this neighbor tying into this neighbor's property. This neighbor flushes a bunch of grease and wipes down the toilet, and now it starts spilling on this neighbor's property. These homes need to be individually tied in. As I said last time, it's state code now, to do that. So I don't know, again, just tossing ideas your guys' way, maybe make it very easy and an easy process and accessible for residents to come in and, get permits for those, because, back 50 years ago when this was happening and began, it was $30 or $50 to go, to go and tie a lateral in. And now, I mean, obviously we know the cost now, it's a financial burden now for residents to try to do something like that. So, yeah.
It's 10 houses, 20 houses?
Oh, we want to know how many houses. Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
If you know, but if you don't know them.
I would say, no, I would say if more than 5 neighborhoods I've been to is experiencing this problem, 30% of old I own probably has this issue, if not a little bit more. But I've had quite a few call outs for laterals in this situation.
So everybody doesn't have their own?
Not everybody, no.
Or it doesn't,
And what happened on 415 is because 415 is the lowest point, they all converged. Yeah. So
has our city engineer been contacted
I believe so, yes.
and has he weighed in on it?
We have not gotten a response back for the drawings of it. Yeah, I was tagged in the email and I didn't get the drawings back.
Maybe it's because we don't pay our bills.
I got a couple of comments. First of all, when this first came to us about a month ago, I reached out, I asked for proper drawings of this section. So first of all, let's break this down. There's the general acceptance of the laterals that Jody and Stacy are looking at changing, and that's a separate thing. So whether that goes ahead or not is fine. That's a separate item. I'm just specifically talking about Shakely Lane right here. Okay. Shakely, I never got anything back from the engineer. I'd like to know exactly what it looked like, but here's where it really matters. Is the city has an ordinance and it says that each home, and you can read the ordinance there, it says each home shall have its own lateral onto the main. Okay. There's an exception to that if you've got 2 houses on one piece of property that you own, but it says when you do a property split, then you will have your own lateral. So, and it also says this, it's unlawful not to have it that way. So the city, I also asked for the building permit, and who signed off on it and who the city engineer was, et cetera. This is a problem from 1979. It's clear that there are more than one houses on a lateral. It's totally clear. And that needs to be rectified. It needs to be rectified by the city. The city allowed that to happen. And nobody here, so don't everybody get mad. It happened in 79. People took shortcuts or people were lax or they weren't paying attention or whatever the reason was. And now here we have a problem and maybe we have some other problems. But at the end of the day, the city is responsible. The city signs a certificate of occupancy and the city okays that house is ready to be lived in. And that includes checking the sewer. You have a sewer inspection. I mean, who's a building inspector here? I had my sewer inspected. They check it for the diameter and the full and everything else. And so clearly it didn't happen in this case. And in this case, the city, I believe, needs to rectify this ASAP because it's a public health hazard. When that water overflows, it goes into a storm drain. And where does the storm drain go? It goes into the creek. And guess what? We're already having enough issues with the regional board without adding this to it. So I think what should happen is whoever it is, Public Works or sewer, gets directed to go get some bids. And then they bring back the cost to the council and we approve it. I mean, or hopefully it gets approved, but that's what needs to happen. It's definitely, it's not the fault of the homeowner. They didn't flush a diaper down their lateral and cause a problem. This is a oversight by the city when the houses were constructed, and they should have been addressed then. And then in this case, they tried to address it, I believe, 7 years ago, and they were told that you can't get a permit by the city, whether it's Public Works or Building Inspector, I'm not sure who they spoke to, but they were told you cannot get a permit, and that's totally false. You absolutely, not only can you get a permit, you must get a permit. And in that permit, you say who's going to be opening the road, how long is it going to be, what their qualifications are. Maybe they got to post a bond. So these people have been misled, ever since they moved into the house, and we just need to fix it. So, and let's fix it right now.
In 79, I believe the ordinance is you can hook up multiple houses on one sewer line. That was a difference. The ordinance has changed, like we're trying to do now to fix things. I'm totally for helping them too, but I don't want to set a precedence on fixing a line that's not our responsibility, not on our line, and then everyone else comes out of the woodwork and says, hey, how come you did this and not our house? And then we're ripping everyone's private sewer lines apart.
Well, first of all, not to argue with you, Mayor, is I'd like to see that 1979 ordinance. I asked for them and I haven't got any. So I did go down that route to see when it was changed. As far as I'm aware, then it's always been one house on a lateral until someone gives me an ordinance that says otherwise. So as for setting a precedent, if there are other homes where the city failed to enforce their ordinances, then they got to pay for them too. That's just the way it is. And if you are planning on bringing in every lateral in the city into this situation, then you're going to be paying for a heck of a lot more than one or two anyway. So again, I think if there's a precedent set, if there's people that have expended funds, if they've had a sewer issue for a number of years and whatever they do doesn't seem to fix it, then they need to come forward as well. We need to take a look at that. But again, I'm all for fixing this.
I definitely feel for Amanda and her family. There's no question about that. My question is, if we were to repair Amanda's, which obviously is the problem, what about the other 3 homes that are currently working just fine? That's my question.
Before you do that, we would want to look into illegal gift of public funds as well.
Because it would be, are we going to be responsible for replacing those other 3 homes that are working fine at this point? And because I do believe we should need to work something out with her family regarding this. I too worry about precedences, but I also feel like we have to bear some of the responsibility since about the codes. But if the other 3 homes are working fine, I don't think we should have to incur that expense at this time.
So you would say, you're saying if we fixed anybody's sewer, it's a gift of public funds, right?
Could be.
Okay, could be.
Getting back to your point, Justin, you said if they were to fix this on their own, the homeowner that is, that it's on their property, so to speak, the problem's on their property, yet somehow we're having to get into the street. They'd have to come to the city. That tells me that this is kind of in a gray area of, well, it's not all on their property. Clearly, there's some area on the city property, which means we're at fault equally with them, right?
So I'd like to do my own, I need to run a camera through her lateral. I need to see if there's a backflow valve. I need to see where all the tie-ins are. I like to see the angle that it drops, and the distance. I want to do, all my own investigating on it. So I can't unfortunately answer that question right now
That's
because,
the piece I need to know.
yeah.
And that's a
absolutely.
problem. You're trespassing on people's property when you do that technically, which is fine, but.
I think the family probably let him trespass. to
Yes,
figure
yes.
this out.
Street. I don't think.
Only to,
No, you need to, you
I need
don't
to
want to
drop it
camera the
from the
whole
top.
line, right?
I would need it, that's going back to what I was discussing earlier, taking on, laterals is a lot of these, like I said, 30 to 40% do not have risers coming up on the curbs to where I can drop in. I'd have to go onto the resident's property, and then liabilities occur when I begin running things down their 4-inch, lateral going down to our main. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys have like a liability waiver or something to where I can have that agreement with the homeowner and go out there and do what I got to do, but.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
That's what we need to do.
Sounds good.
Could any of this be attributed to the street?
And in what way?
Well, I mean, we've had that road on our list to be fixed for 5 years.
So. Yeah, we have that,
It's been on SB1 for 5 years and never been fixed.
here's Shakely, see where's Flyer. Their area is right here, the house we're speaking about. The area that has issues, are in purple down here. But Shakely goes that direction.
Yeah.
Theirs drops down and goes, this direction, so I would say as far as the main, no, if that's the question. The
Okay.
main sewer line, there isn't an issue with that.
I was just thinking of SB1 funds.
Okay.
Because we've designated that street.
Mhm. Yeah, so Shakely Lane, the name Shakely Lane, yes, has funds designated to that street, but the area with the, issues, is,
It's not on Shakely?
no, so Shakely Lane, the funds were allotted to Shakely Lane. But the area that needs the work is right here, in the purple, and then you can see other areas on here as well. This area, which is having the issues, 415, is not, that was over a decade ago. It's not, wasn't on that list 15 years ago, whatever it was.
I think we need to get you a liability waiver, and have him do the investigation.
I would clarify, Councilmember Mitchell, if I heard you correct, that just the code, what the code says is property owners are responsible all the way up to the main. So even if we're in the street, it wouldn't be the city's obligation.
But we're not sure right now.
They're not hooked to the main.
I think what we're saying is if it's in the street, because it's really hard, it's a, you know, it's
Gray area.
It's a gray area, and it's incredibly costly for a resident to have to work on that. I mean, you're talking about a terracotta pipe in the street, like, you know, that they have to hire somebody special work, you know? So I think that's what we're talking about here is we want to let me go in there and run a line, you know, camera all the way down to where it meets at the street, where it goes under city property, and see if the issues, that's the main point of concern for this line, you know, aside from all the other, you know, things we've been discussing.
And, I know they've been dealing with this for years and they don't have that information. I understand they've hired multiple plumbers.
So when I went out there that night, they had a plumbing company out there, so it'd be good to know, like, that maybe if I get in contact with them. I haven't really been brought in on the situation. I know that they have had more issues. I'd like to see them when they're occurring, be able to pull manholes in the road and see what the flow looks like. But well, I heard your house backed up, you know, during the storm, and it'd have been good if I was called out there so I could see what the flow looked like because of and then I could have answered that question if it is caused by the main. No, it was 4 days ago.
They were in Mexico. We're getting out of.
So I'd like to go and investigate it myself.
We've already had 3 cameras put in that. Hang on, you're going to come up and make public comment in a second. Thank you.
Any other council comments, questions to Justin? No? Okay. Open up for public comment.
As Councilman Outland said, this was done before they ever had, the city used to hook up to it. So whatever connection that done in that year was the city hooked up to it. they never changed that ordinance still in the nineties, and I think Andrea Bottom can back that up. They changed the ordinance where the city didn't do it and everybody else. It happened in the nineties. I know that because I come down and bitched about it because the city hooked mine up in 1980. So I know that was hooked up and the city hooked it up. Now, they finally inspected it, but they only had to go to the property line. The city did from the property line, and I'd like to bring up Mr. Larry Angiers on 124. He had a root that long growing up from the city main in his, and the city wouldn't pay for it. He had to pay a contractor, and that's on state right away. So he went through a heck of a lot of bull, and he had to pay for it. And it went 2 feet up his pipe from the city, and the city wouldn't pay for it from the council then. Right? There's one councilman voted for it to pay for it. I think that's terrible. But anyway, and for Justin, he's gonna where I'm at, I know there's a house over there that the sewer main from the upper street runs right through the garage, right through your driveway. So you guys ain't seen nothing yet. And this is all terracotta. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I think it would be a wise idea to get the city engineer to look at the specs and the regulations and the ordinances and draw up a specification that's effective as of today from this point forward. And that anytime anybody wants a permit, you got to have an inspection, it's got to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Good evening. Last time I spoke, I just want to make a quick point. Being on this side of the dais is really interesting for me, being that I'm on the other side. So the 4 minutes and oh my God, I got to talk in front of people. I now feel for the people that come to the other meetings and speak. So with that being said, I wrote something because I didn't want to ramble. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is James Marzano. I am here in support of Miss Amanda Naranjo. I work for a property management company that oversees hundreds of properties within this community and this county, many of which are in Ione, though I'm the maintenance coordinator as well. Through this experience, I have developed a strong understanding of the local housing landscape and what is considered typical and atypical when it comes to property issues in the area. We have managed numerous properties requiring sewer repairs and have worked closely with both the city of Ione and local plumbers to resolve these problems. Sewer issues are not new to Ione, and I have firsthand experience navigating these challenges. Recently, the ongoing sewage issue in front of 415 Shakely Lane has raised serious concern. It has been determined that this is not a private residence issue, but rather a city issue. While I am not an expert in wastewater or raw sewage, I estimate that approximately 2 gallons per minute of raw sewage flowed into our storm drains for 5 days. I appreciate Mr. Atlin's concern about the creek. Flowed into our storm drains for 5 days, totaling about 14,000 gallons. The equivalent of 3/4 of a standard in-ground swimming pool, which typically holds 16,000 to 18,000 gallons of water. The reason for this massive overflow is that the city tied in 4 additional residences into the same sewer, 415 Shakely Lane. This means that the sewage percolating at the bottom of the stairs of the home and inside the downstairs of the home of Miss Naranjo, but for 5 full residences. Oh, but sorry. in front of the home stairs and inside the downstairs area of her home was not just from one home, but from 5 full residences. And this 5-day sewage overflow is just one instance. This does not account for the countless other times this issue has occurred without being resolved. The problem persists, and each time it happens, it not only creates an environmental and health hazard, but also further damages the property and the homeowner's ability to move forward with any future plans. This situation has placed the homeowner at a severe disadvantage regarding any future decisions for their property. Whether they choose to sell or make other changes, the issue must now be disclosed to potential buyers, significantly limiting their ability to sell and drastically diminishing the resale value of their home as a result. To put this into perspective, the city has previously taken issue with the prison allegedly discarding caffeine from their decaf process into the storm drains and nearby creek due to its potential impact on drinking water. If that was a concern, then the release of thousands of gallons of raw sewage from 5 homes into the storm drains, which directly impact our water supply, deserves immediate attention and resolution. I want to emphasize that this is not political, nor is it personal. Never is. The only goal here is to have this issue resolved as quickly as possible for the sake of the homeowner, the residents, and the community as a whole. I urge the city to take swift action before the situation worsens. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
I really don't. My name's George. I don't have I just got a question. So from your clean out from your sidewalk to the main sewer, which is your lateral. So normally a house has cleanups right up by the house. Then they have your main pipe, and then it goes to a clean out by the sidewalk, and then it goes to the lateral. So I'm understanding, so that clean out from my sidewalk to the sewer, if something happened to that pipe, you're telling me it's my responsibility?
Currently, yes, that is.
I thought that was always a city problem.
It was changed in 92. And we're trying to change it back.
Okay. Because if you, it's really funny because if I try to tear up the sidewalk or the street to fix that, it's gonna be a hassle.
Oh yeah, just imagine you lived on a state highway. You'd probably lose your house. That's why we're trying to change it.
Okay. I never heard of that before. This is the first one to me, because every other city that I live into, because even the city of Sunnyvale, we had a clog pipe problem and the city came in and put a clean out right at the sidewalk and wasn't even a fee to us. That's why I said I never heard of homeowners having to take care of a lateral. Is that right, Thomas? Do you know anything about that?
Much different like what we use today.
Okay. Yeah, I know, it's plastic instead of.
It's public comment, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other public comment? Close public comment? Council?
I think we just got to fix this problem right now. And like you said, if you're anticipating taking in the rest of the laterals in the city, then then you're going to be fixing this anyway. So let's get it fixed right now.
I think the city engineer needs to weigh in. I know some people don't agree with it, but he keeps us out of litigation. That's what he's there for. So.
Legal counsel, what do you think? This was just an oral report, so.
Yes, well, council's considering going forward with an ordinance or undertaking big projects. I see some liability concerns. I think there's going to be a lot of costs as breaks happen and Justin has to get out there and fix it. I also have a worry about, without doing further review, of using public funds for something that could be seen as a very specific private benefit for one property owner. And I think even in this scenario, if you took on the laterals, that doesn't solve the problem, because as I'm understanding it, there's a joint connection on the private property side that needs to be fixed, and that's going to be an expensive repair. But I think there's a number of things to work through before considering an ordinance change, in my opinion, and it's not uncommon for the property owner to have the maintenance obligation, and there could be something that the city looks into of how to expedite permit processing if they ever need to get in there. But I would say more information before undertaking an ordinance change would be my recommendation.
Okay.
Can we keep those things separate? Because it's
Yeah.
bogging it down.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to focus on what's the health hazard that we have right now. I want to focus on the city failing to enforce its own ordinance. I believe when you have more than one house on lateral, then that one lateral needs to be 6 inches, and I heard it was 4 inches. So there's a whole bunch of, specific items to this piece of property. The other thing is, well, the homeowners there can go out and fix the lateral right now. They can go in, and I'm kind of finding it hard to believe that in the 80s, they're still using terracotta pipes. I mean, that's crazy when there was plastic. But if they went out right now and fixed their lateral and got a brand new pipe, PVC or some kind of plastics, probably not PVC, but PBS, ABS. So they go and put a pipe in and they fix their own property. You've just cut off the other 4 houses. So how does that work? Because I'm telling you right now, if I'm fixing my own property, I'm not letting anybody else get in there. So, and they could do that. And then now you're going to be fixing 4 other houses anyway. So I think this is a unique thing. It's a mess. It needs to be fixed.
It's just a question of if the city is paying for the fix or if the 4 properties are.
Well, let's get a price, and maybe we can do some cost split with the homeowners.
How much money have they spent already?
I don't know what it's going to cost, but I mean, first thing we got to do is get the.
I think you need the investigation and you need the city engineer.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you find out. I mean, I appreciate the information that's been brought forward. I'm not sure where the problem really is right now. If it's all, or if it's multiple problems. You have problems on the private side, you have problems on the city side. Without changing anything, let's investigate, find out, and let's fix the part that the city needs to fix and do everything we can for the people that live there.
What's hard is the emotional equation here, because we want to do the right thing, and obviously as human beings, I have sympathy for the situation they're in. I've been there. I know what it's like, trust me, and it's not fun. But we also have an obligation here, and I don't want to dismiss your situation by any means, but I agree. I think we need to get the city engineer involved and check this out. I think we might be putting the cart before the horse too quick. Maybe there might be some avenues that we can go. I do want to thank Justin again for his presentation, because he really does care about this, as you also.
Yeah, we all feel for you. We want to help you as much as possible legally. So is there some sort of
Have enough direction to go off on that to get?
Yeah, we'll do the investigation and the waiver if the property owner would permits.
Can we get some bids while we're at it?
That's what we can do to expedite it.
Doesn't cost anything.
You don't know what you're bidding yet.
That all falls to George.
But yeah, after. Okay.
And my one final is, at the time it was constructed, I suspect that it was in compliance with whatever ordinance or standard was on the books.
Respectfully beg to differ.
Okay, so do you have?
Now it's non-conforming, yeah.
Correction or whatever you need?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So that ends that one. Okay, moving on to item 7, discussion, consideration of removal of Planning Commissioner Amber Hayashka.
Is she here?
Only a brief report. I know this item was brought forward by the mayor. I can advise on what the process is and the requirements, but to remove a planning commissioner, it would be a majority vote of the council. And I would defer it to the council to deliberate the reasons. And if this is something you want to proceed with, I understand there might have been some concerning online posting activity, but I can't speak to all the reasons why perfectly, but I can advise on the procedure and if I have any concerns.
Do we follow the same kind of protocol as the censor? Is that what you're saying?
No, this is in the code. This is purely a majority vote of the council if you'd like to proceed to remove
Okay.
a specific planning
How this
commissioner.
came up is I got 3 different phone calls from 3 different people saying that someone was on there offering or trying to get someone to show them how to sue the city over some issues. So I don't think that's a proper thing for a commissioner to do, to try and tell people how to sue people. So that's how this came up. I didn't physically hear it, or see it rather. I didn't physically see it, but I've heard it from numerous people. So that's how this came up. And I know before, when we've had problems with commissioners doing things like that, the council voted to remove them and replace them with someone else.
I just got in trouble for it.
So that's how this came up.
Okay, I'd like to know,
Council,
you're making some pretty serious accusations. You're just saying, I heard, I was told.
well, usually when I hear something
Yeah.
3 times, it's
And then
hearsay.
you put her name on a public document. So I'd like to know exactly what you're claiming she did.
she was supposedly advising someone on, she was supposedly advising people on how to sue the city
Where? Who?
on social media.
For what?
I don't know what it was.
No, you do know what it was. It was
No, I
415
saw,
Shakely.
I don't.
yeah,
No,
I saw
don't.
pieces on 415 Shakely online. that
I
was
do not
looking
look at it. The chief of police advises me when not to look on social media because he's afraid I'm going to do something.
Well, I mean, you post on social media, so let's not go there. I looked on that post. Amber never said a word about suing. She directed them to call the city. Because when I saw this, I thought, that was the first thing I thought. She reached out to the homeowners and said, get a hold of the city, go talk to them. I did not see her say, go sue the city and this is how you do it. So once again, here we are wasting staff time, slamming a commissioner who, how long has she been on the chair? What, since 16? I do know that she stopped a sale of a city property because a certain city manager didn't want to go through the HCD process. But this is ridiculous. Because supposedly somebody said something.
Any other council comments?
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked when this was on here and now I'm just even more blown away. That's the mayor would just listen to hearsay, repeat it in public, slander Amber Hoyska, put her name on there. So this is a lot like item number 2. I haven't seen anything that was on social media and I don't know what the policy is for the planning commissioners anyway. Where's the book, Mr. Attorney? Where's the guidelines?
And where's freedom of speech?
Yeah, and then, so I remember, I'll tell you a funny story, not so funny for me. But I remember when the meetings were going like this, you know, a debacle, a joke. And I asked the mayor, hey, would you, get control of the meeting and stop all this name calling and stuff? And he said to me, it's called free speech. And if you don't like it, go back where you came from.
I said, go back to Europe.
Okay, that's fine.
Said-
Go back to Europe.
England.
Great, that's fine. Europe's close enough. So, I mean, so that's the second time now he said in public that that's a protected class. Anyway, it's not about me, it's about Amber. But here we go. Harassment, hostility.
It's not harassment. I'm not harassing her. I don't
Yeah,
even know.
I think she's probably feeling pretty harassed when people that won't even come forward have said she said something. You never even checked it out. As you just said, the police chief won't let you. So you never even verified this yourself. You put it on here. You
Chief of
should.
police didn't say that I couldn't look.
Well, I thought that's what you just said. My mistake.
That has nothing to do.
But anyway, this should never be on here. If you want to have a policy on how you remove people from the commission, then fine. And there needs to be specific guidelines, blah, blah, blah. But you can't have the mayor just decide hey, I want to censure this person or I want to remove this person for no good reason. You know, we had a planning commissioner that was argumentative with the mayor, and he got his due process. We talked about it first. We said, hey, this person's been refusing to sit down, blah, blah, blah. And we had a discussion and nothing happened. You know, the mayor asked me, do you want to remove him from the planning commission? I said, no, I don't want to remove him. I said, you know, he just needs to stop being antagonistic at the council meetings. So this is, again, just shocked that this would even be on here. And then there's no procedure for this person to say, like, oh, I never said that. That's not what I said. Oh, how about we find the post and kill it? Oh, there you go. I mean, can somebody put that up on the screen there?
Or read it.
Can you give it to the chief here? Yeah, there will. I'm done. Okay, that'll be great. Thank you.
But going back to my reason, that's how you get things on the agenda. You justify it.
That's why it's on the agenda.
Justify it. That's your job, because that's what Andy used to do. Andy would, when somebody wanted something that was a little dicey, he'd go back to the people and say, give me your justification. So I know that we talked to you and you said, hey, I just put my stuff on. They do what they do.
That's not quite what I said, but
I know that very many other committee members have been removed before, and I wasn't doing it, but other people up here did, and they did the same thing. They just wanted them off for whatever reason. But I'm not doing this for whatever reason. I saw something that I thought could.
You saw something.
saw
Now you saw something.
I heard something from, which is probably true. They probably deleted it because a lot of that happens. That's why I try not to look at this stuff too much. But
Public comment, let them read it.
anyhow,
It goes in the newspaper.
any other council committee before I open it up to public? Okay, we'll open it up to public comment.
Huh? What did you say, Jack?
I appreciate your comment, Mr. Mayor, regarding they probably deleted it. That actually goes against mine and Ms. Naranjo's character.
No, not
But I
you,
appreciate-
not you deleting it. No. Just people delete things on Facebook.
Roger that, sir. Directly communicating to me, Ms. Hoyska states next meeting, she's helping me understand the process. Next meeting is Tuesday, but yeah, a regular council meeting will follow on the third Tuesday, 100% recommend. There's been many comments before this issue brought to council, but there is a new city manager also who may be only 2 winters in now at Ione, and unlike some of the sitting council, may be unaware how tedious the issue is for residents. Her next comment, my recommendation is you make this into a public comment at a city council meeting on matters not on the agenda. Tuesday, February 5th at 5:30, and while a closed session, your public comment is still heard and recorded, and then there is a screenshot of the front page of the agenda attached to that comment, which was marked 2 weeks ago. She then says, good to hear, because I had said that we were going to be at the meeting. Good to hear, my friend. I just received the agendas today via email, and so it's fresh in my mind. I'm so sorry this is affecting our home, excuse me, your home. How terrible, or terrible. I almost called it a public safety issue in my comment. I'm not trying to fan flames, but human and pet waste need proper disposal, and it's not be contaminating waterways. So it's very much a known issue, and it's ridiculous that it's 2025 and still being tolerated. I'm sorry, I have an East San Jose high school education, and I don't see anything regarding litigation against the city.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Any other public comment?
The fact that this is even on the agenda is absolutely inappropriate. You had the mayor simply say, I heard XYZ, and it's an agenda item to remove a long-standing commissioner who's done excellent work for the city on the planning commission. And simply on the fact that he thinks it's the way it's true. It's probably true. I heard it from 3 people. Oh, it must be true. Didn't take the time to even look it up to verify it. Instead, put it on the agenda for the entire community to see it. You've got to be kidding me. That is, if I were Amber, I might consider slander. You have just put her name out here to be removed for something that you have fully admit is hearsay.
And
unbelievable.
And how are we going to unring this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's out there now. So a public apology,
Yeah.
because that's out there.
Public apology for sure. Save us from being sued.
Any other public comment? Close public comment? It's close. I guess I'll say I apologize. I heard that's what happened. I mentioned it in the last meeting, which I did, and the attorney put it on the agenda.
It's your fault.
No, he's our attorney.
Yes, at the end of each agenda, the council members make agenda item
Okay,
requests.
I have some.
Sure.
I think it's, I'm going to say admirable that Stacy apologized. I would like it in writing, seeing as the agenda's in writing, but I do appreciate Stacy apologizing. That goes a long way with me. But I think for the person involved, it just needs to be put in writing. So hopefully he'll do that.
I'll do that.
I can't make him.
I appreciate Stacy's apology too. Accept it. And I think we all need to be a little more cognizant of making sure that we don't put out hearsay.
Right.
They were here to support, right? Because had it not come publicly, it was.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, you guys.
Any other comment? Okay. We'll move on to reports and communications from city attorney.
None.
None? Reports and communications from city manager.
I just wanted to report out that, I think yourself, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Maida, Vice Mayor, did receive a demo from Chief Alfred regarding the recording contraption for recording closed session. Okay. So I do believe the comments that I heard from you and Mr. Maida were positive. So I will put that on the agenda for the next meeting to move forward with that. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, George.
I'd like to add to that too. Any other council member that would like to see that, feel free to reach out to me and I'll show it to you.
Oh, I didn't approve it, so I don't know.
Okay, council comments, committee reports, and future agenda items. We'll start with you, Councilmember Atlee.
Look, it's been a rough couple of months. I just hope that the next 8, actually, I can't even count, the next 10 are better. We've all got to do better. I hope that we all do. I mean, let's do better, guys.
Anything to report on? Jody?
I'll report on an Eagle Scout project at our next meeting. Young man did an Eagles Scout project at Howard Park, and I have some information on it. And it was involving one of the booths out there. He did a lot of work to it, but I have something to report next time.
Councilmember LaFing?
I would like to see the city engineer step in on that. I'd like to know what the progress is for our 2 RFPs that we gave direction 6 months ago. One was for the city planner, and the other was for the landscape contract, the maintenance contract at Castle Oaks. I think those were the two most important ones that we were hoping to get right away. I did receive some calls from people going out to ride one day at the arena. They said it was closed down. Baseball was in there. And they said that they've just told me that the ground hasn't been worked, that the tractor's not been out there. Council gave direction for a groomer 7 months ago. That hasn't been purchased. We wanted to catch the winter season. That was the reason we approved both the sand and the groomer and the tractor. And now we've missed that revenue. One individual said you told her that you guys were going to wait until January to get the sand in there and buy the groomer. But so far, you know, we're halfway into February, so we've missed.
I think that's hearsay. Tell me who said that.
It was Stacy Freitas who came in. She was trying to run a barrel race and she was told that the groomer was going to be purchased.
Yes, it was. It was being purchased, but it was a back order.
No, she called them. They had 4.
Okay, we'll find out. But again, that's hearsay. Okay.
It's not here.
Well, that's your word against her word. So again, I'll follow up though.
Well, George, I have an email from you as well saying we're going to get right on it and get it
Yes.
purchased.
If it's available, yes.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Please don't then.
Well, we gave direction.
Okay.
Anything, Mr. Mitchell?
No.
I just did the Greek committee, but Gary did a good job of reporting out on that. So does someone want to entertain a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll send you the email.
You make a second, Jody?
I'll make a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's early, Dominic. It's early.